welcome to this edition of Pop and Sky Talk Baseball. Before we get started, I just want to thank everybody. Our viewership, Dad, I don't know if you've noticed it or not. I know you go back and watch some of these, has gone up and up. It seems like these last, 4 or 5 weeks. And I just want to appreciate everybody taking the time to watch. And, we're just two guys giving our opinions, right, wrong, or indifferent. We've seen a lot of baseball between us, and we just have a good time talking about it. And I'm glad others are enjoying it as well. People have been reaching out and leaving comments, and I appreciate it, and I'm sure my dad does as well. So I just want to take that time to let everybody know how I feel, and thank you for watching. And so, Dad, before we came on, we were talking, hey, what do we want to talk about today? And we talked about some awards. This last week were the meaningful awards, I call them, the Writers Association. So, I don't think it was any surprise in MVPs. Acuna had an MVP season. He
40 and 70. Nobody's ever done that.
Right.
How do you not give him the award?
Yeah, and I heard all because of bases, because of clocks.
Wait,
well, nobody even else came close to it.
I'm sorry. I agree. That's changed a lot of the stolen bases, but not that much.
Right.
Well, he's got 70 of them.
With 40 home runs. Right. And I mean, and we'll talk another young man here in a minute who had another incredible season with those, with not similar numbers, but in the same rankings. And then Shohei Ohtani, everybody wants to call him Babe Ruth. I'm sorry, Babe Ruth didn't do what Ohtani's doing. I'm sorry, he didn't. We won't see Ohtani pitch next year, but he'll be back DHing somewhere. And we'll talk about rumors later in the second half. So, that's, how about you, Dad? You've seen baseball a lot longer than I have. What Ohtani's doing, is that just freakishness or just right time?
Ohtani is a unicorn. First of all, he's big. He's a big dude. That's one thing. The second thing is, for his size, he runs so fast. He's so fast.
Right.
He's got a real good arm. If he ever, goes in the outfield, he can throw the ball. He can throw it. He's got a great arm, and he's got power. Plus, he can hit. His problem was he tried to do too much. That pitching and hitting at the same time in 162 games, it just wore him out. And he got to him late in the season, and now he's going to have TJ surgery. So
I just don't know if hitting and pitching has anything to do with that. I agree that it wore him out. That got him tired, but
it certainly has to do with fatigue.
Right.
And but I think he'll be DHing somewhere next year, and like you said, we'll talk about it later on.
Right. So no big surprises there. Rookie of the Year, National League. I don't think that was much of a surprise with Corbin Carroll.
No, I think that was pretty done. That was a done deal back. We talked about him winning it back in July.
Right. So, and he did something. He didn't have 70 stolen, but isn't he the first rookie to have 30-30, right? But he had 40 steals, right?
Yeah.
So he showed in the playoffs he can hit the long ball, he can steal bases. His one deficit is his arm. That's where he's missing the fifth tool. But with everything else he has, I don't think that's a big deal.
Well, when the kid came up from Cincinnati and took the league by storm, it looked like he may give him a challenge, and then everybody figured out he couldn't hit a curveball, or a breaking pitch. So then they stopped throwing fastballs, and that went.
I don't think Dela Cruz would have had enough at bats or games played.
He might not have, but what I'm saying is, he went. He went down faster than a Titanic. It was
right
because they found out he couldn't hit a breaking pitch.
Yeah, and I hope he figures it out. He's still young. I said that when he came up. I go, he's raw. He's a raw talent that's still learning. I just hope he didn't get discouraged. And we could talk later about that as well. But the other one, I don't know if it's a surprise. We were hoping that he would win. And he played the whole season, and his second half was really, really good.
Yeah, Gunnar started off real slow. I mean,
right,
real slow. But the second half of the year, he caught fire, and I mean, he was stroking the ball the last month or two of the season
while playing several different positions, which is
exactly.
You have to, get prepared to play those positions mentally, and it's a tough thing when you can't carry. You can't carry your fielding into the dugout with you, and vice versa. You can't have a bad plate appearances carry into the field. And being as young as he is, he just seems to have that mental part of it down so far. So,
well, I saw an interview with him on MLB when he won the award, and he gave all the credit to his teammates because he said the team has a few older guys on it, but they're so young. The majority of them are so young, and they bonded so well. And they're going to get one thing we do. We listen to our coaches.
Right. Well, and we'll talk. So let's talk about manager of the year, the coach for the Orioles.
Who else? I mean,
really, yeah. I mean, nobody.
The Tampa manager, he's got a right to win it every year. What he does with that team,
right?
With that payroll. I mean, he did a heck of a job with that team, and
but nobody expected Baltimore to be challenging for a playoff spot, much less a. People were hoping 500, not 100. And great season. Hopefully, you build on that. They got great players in the pipeline that they could either trade for maybe a 1 or 2 arms, or let go of some veterans and get younger.
The other person that I would, if you, like I said, though, this is for the regular season. If it was for everything, Bruce Bochy, for what he did with the Rangers,
right,
for them to win the World Championship, and I think the manager in Minnesota did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because we were joking about how bad the Central divisions were in both leagues. And then about halfway through the season, Minnesota started winning.
Yeah.
They had pitching, and then they started to hit. And when they started to hit, they won a lot of games. And
that trade they made with the Marlins with Araza, trading their best hitter for
one of their best pitchers. It paid off for both.
Paid off in spades. Yeah. Really. And it just seemed like that whole pitching staff fed off next man up type of deal, which can happen. And hopefully for an organization and a fan base, and we talked about it, their fans for the playoffs were out there. It's no dome. They did play a night game when it was chilly, and their fans were out there. It was packed. So that organization. And I am drawing, forgive me, I am drawing a blank on the National League Manager of the Year.
It was Miami.
Oh, yeah. Which, again, another team that everybody thought they were going to be the last place team in the National League East.
See, I disagreed with that one.
I did too, because I thought the Mets would be the last place team in the National League East.
Well, no, I'm disagreeing. That manager deserves credit. But I wouldn't have given him to the manager of the year in the National League. I'd have given it to Arizona.
Yeah. And I think it was a close race. But Arizona, even though they surprised teams, they still didn't win the division and made the wild card, which everybody had them probably third in that division, and somebody even had them fourth behind the Giants. But you're right. That's a 100% correct statement.
The Miami manager did a great job.
Right. Nothing taken
away from the other thing, and you've talked about it, and I agree with you, but for managers to succeed in Tampa and Miami, they don't have any crowds. So, I mean, you have Philadelphia, when you go out on the field and the Philadelphia Philly fans are in the stands going crazy in the middle of the season, that helps their team.
Right.
In Miami, you can sit there and when you hear some guy holler at his wife in the center field stands, you can pick it up on the microphone for the catcher.
You're playing in the echo chamber. I mean,
yeah, I mean, the guy hits the ball and it goes pow, 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 pow,
right.
pow, pow. It's
really
you're at a disadvantage, and so he deserved it to a certain extent. But I would have given it to the guy in Arizona. Just me.
Yep. Cy Young's Garrett Cole. It's hard to believe this was his first.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, I did not realize that till I read the little blurb.
He's the best pitcher in the game.
What's that?
He's the best pitcher in the game right now, in either league.
He's the most consistent, I believe. Over the last 10 years, he's probably the best pitcher consistently. But because it's whoever has the best year, not the most consistency over the last 10 years. So
sure, but I mean, he is that earned run average, all those strikeouts and everything, and he pitched more innings than most everybody. He was outstanding. And I mean, the National League was, to me, it was a bunch of decent, real good pitchers. But when you got the American League, you had Cole, and then you had everybody else.
Right. Yep. And then you had Blake Snelling in the National League.
Blake Snell.
Snell. I mean, Snell.
But what I'm saying is, Snell had a good year. I'm not saying he didn't.
Right.
But he's not Cole.
No. And I mean, I think because he led, but strikeouts, he was way up there. Batting average, he was pretty good with the batting. I think he had a very good batting average against. He did give up some runs, but I just in the National League, it wasn't a lot to pick from, so I think he won just by default. Even my man Cody Singo had votes, I believe, for it, for the because he came in third in rookie voting and pitch in the National League. So
yeah, he was third in rookies.
Yeah, and he had a good season. Just played on a bad team. So I think that was the big ones this week. We were talking. I don't know who won the Executive of the Year. That's one of those made the right decision at the right time deal, and it panned out. But with this season now, we could put it in the books. It's over. Trades are started. Teams are making some trades before
free agency.
Well, and also the big thing before they make their 40-man rosters as well.
Nola went back to the Phillies today.
Oh, well, that's a big thing. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, he signed with the Phillies, I think, $127 million for 7 years. I'm not sure. He
signed
a contract with the Phillies.
And that's probably overpaying, but when you're the best pitcher out there in a year where there's not a lot, we've talked about it. Pitching is a premium, and they're going to get paid. A mediocre pitcher is going to make $20 million a year. That's just Aaron Nola's not mediocre. I mean, he's older.
And Hoskins is talking about coming back to Philly too.
I was hoping to see him in this uniform next year, but it is what it is.
The Phillies are going to. The team that the Phillies have put on the field now, they're going to challenge for the National League pennant every year now for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it's a 2-horse race. Them and the Braves. The other teams need to. I don't know what. You basically got to have an all-star. You got to have 4 or 5 all-star players on your team to compete in that division. And
I'm talking about the league, the National League.
Oh, the National League.
The National League, they're going to be a challenge every year in the National League. I mean,
I can see that.
And they're they're actually going to they're going to put in a little bid for the Japanese pitcher that everybody thinks either going to go to the Mets or the Yankees.
Oh, Yamamoto or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, there's two different Japanese pitchers as well, and I just want to let everybody know that that's one that's the top one, and then there's another pitcher that's probably fourth or fifth down rated in the free agency, but he's moved up now at one spot since Aaron Nola signed. Yeah, and I was reading it looks like he's going to be a Yankee, because the Yankees just throwing ungodly money at him. Also, read this week that the Dodgers are ready to give rename Dodger Stadium Ohtani Stadium.
Well, the thing about Ohtani is the other thing about Ohtani, he's not just a ball player. The guy is brilliant. I mean, he's very smart, and his agent is very smart. And what they're doing, they're playing everything close to the vest, so that his name is going to, the rest of the offseason is going to revolve around him.
Right.
He is going to be the number one thing in the offseason. They want it that way. They want these teams to be playing off of each other. Because he's going to go to the Dodgers. Everybody's going, sign him up. He's going to the Dodgers. Well, now it's the Dodgers, it's the Cubs, it's the Rangers, it's the Astros, it's the Phillies, it's the Yankees, it's the Mets, it's the Seattle was in it.
The Mets said they're out.
Seattle was in it, and they dropped out. Today, they decided they didn't want any part of this.
What I've been reading is the Mets are out.
They said it's going to be too much money, because he is 30 years old. I don't care what kind of shape he's in. He's 30 years old. You give him a 10-year contract.
You cannot be signed. You can't be signing him at this moment saying he's a two-way player, because he's not.
Because he's not. You don't know whether he's going to be.
Right. That's exactly right. So you're signing a DH. Are you going to give a DH $300 million for 10 years? That is a lot of money, and somebody will.
And it's going to be 5. From what I understand, it's going to start at 500. Start.
Well, whatever.
And then
500 for.
See, this is what I said before. We talked about this before. I don't care how. It doesn't make any sense to us. It doesn't make any sense. I know what I get in my retirement and my Social Security. I know how much I've got saved in the bank from when I worked and where my wife worked.
Mm-hmm.
We're fine financially, but I'm not going to go out and buy a Cadillac SUV for $100,000. It's stupid.
Right.
But I wouldn't pay $300 million for a DH either. But there are desperate teams who are going to do desperate things because certain people, like GMs, are afraid of their job. Managers are afraid for their job. Owners are afraid the fans will turn on them if they don't try to get somebody that, the fans really want. So, I mean, I said it. I've said it all summer. Somebody's going to be desperate and give this man. They're going to back up the Brinks truck and drop $500-600 million on it.
Well, the talk is also with the Dodgers is they're not only do they want Ohtani, they're willing to trade a lot of prospects to get Trout as well.
I saw that too.
And the owner of I thought it was Trout won out, but the way it seems, it's more the owner wants to get rid of Trout because he wants to sell the team, and it's hard to sell the team
with that contract.
With that contract.
Yep.
That is, a fact of life in any business.
Well, you put Trout and Ohtani. Let's be honest. If you put Trout and Ohtani in that Dodger lineup with Betts and Freddie, and I mean, that catcher.
If you can hang on to Michael Taylor, which I think they will, he in the outfield too. You got him, that's Trout, him, and Betts in the outfield. that's tough. You know,
Yeah, Muncie. You got. I mean, that'd be a heck of a lineup.
Muncie, and that lineup will. That's an all-star team lineup.
Right,
I mean,
but the problem always
Will
comes
Smith,
down to
the catcher.
the best ability is the availability, and Trout has the last few years has been getting hurt every year.
Well, I'm going to say it again. I really think if Trout played on a different team and a contender, he wouldn't be missing as many games. That's my gut feeling. I think there's some deeper issues. When he came back not even for a game, cleared his locker and left. Ohtani comes back, and all of a sudden, my abdomen hurts. I'm cleaning my locker and leave. I think there's some really big issues with management there, with the top dogs and the players. I think there's some division there. And maybe they do need to clean house and start all over. They need to get rid of Rodon. They need to just.
I mean, if Ohtani, I'll tell you, if Ohtani signs with one team, they're really going to be loaded. That's Texas.
But again, I'm sitting here looking at cash flow. That's going to hamstring them because they already got Semien and Seager signed to big contracts.
Right.
Yes, the Mets took on a lot of the Scherzer money, but there's still a lot there as well. They still have DeGrom on the payroll. I mean, I don't know how many dollars. Not everybody wants to pay the tax. I don't know. But
yeah, I mean,
you just won the World Series. Yes, everybody wants Ohtani. Everybody wants him. It's just who wants to pay that much for a DH? I don't.
Because what you're going to do, you're going to hamstring your organization for years, paying a $500 million contract. You're going to hamstring your organization for years. You just won't be able to pay everybody.
So if they let's say Texas gets Ohtani, Dad. DeGrom starts the year. Scherzer starts the year. They lose Montgomery because he's a free agent because they can't pay him because they just let Ohtani. They just signed Ohtani. You're not going to have Scherzer and DeGrom all year. You're not. You got to go ahead and get another pitcher. You got to sign. How are you going to do that with that?
Well, you can take almost every contender, and it's the same thing. When you're talking about a $500 million contract,
right?
You take a $500 million contract, put him on the Dodgers. Fine. They have no pitching. If Buehler comes back, they got one.
Right.
I mean,
well, Kershaw's out now, right? Didn't he get surgery right after his season? His season was over.
Yeah, but he'll be able to come back. But I mean, he's on his last legs.
Right.
And then you've got you have a Buehler coming back. You got a couple of those kids throw about 100 miles an hour that are coming back. But I mean, there again. I mean, you got to pay Betts. You got to pay Freddie. You just gave Muncie a new contract. You got. I mean, here they pick can the Yankees take on Ohtani? They got to pay Judge. They got to pay Stanton. They got to pay Cole. I mean, the Mets, they just got rid of salary. They're going to add $500 million more?
Well, that's why they said they're out. They're out. Because the Mets need more. When I looked at who they offered, the whatever the offer sheet is for this year, who they offered and who they didn't offer spoke volumes of what's going on there. So they did tender Pete. They did tender a pitcher, but about everybody else, they said,
"Yeah,
see you later."
The Phillies. I don't know how the Phillies would sign it.
Right.
With the contracts they've got, I mean, they already got $300 million tied up with Harper.
And they say getting those 10-year big money deals always up front seems like a lot, but when you get to the back end, you're getting that player for 10 years ago money, but you're not getting a 10-year ago player either.
He's not. He doesn't have, unless he's taking steroids. He's not going to be able to produce like he did 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, hitting. I don't know. Hitting, you might. Nelson Cruz did it a long time. Big Papi did it a long time. Jim Thome did it a long time. And he is such a health freak, health nut. And I mean, his injuries are from pitching. They're not, from fielding. And I mean, we forget too, we keep talking about DH. He's not a bad outfielder. If you want him to play outfield for you.
Right. Well, he'd have to, but he couldn't play outfield next year because he wouldn't be able to throw.
Right. So you're getting a DH. That's point blank. That's what you're paying for.
See, and the other thing, I'm going back to Cy Young for a minute. That the Cy Young Award now it's difficult. I mean, here again, Cole is an outlier. He's an outlier. When Snell went 6 innings, it was a big deal. He went 7 a couple of times, and they almost fainted. So your starting pitchers are only going 5, 6, 7 innings.
Yeah, but I've brought this up before. I know where you're going, and it's
give the Cy Young to the 1 year. The Cy Young is going to go to the Seattle bullpen because the Seattle bullpen will win more games than the starters.
They've had relievers come up in discussion for it, but they have their Rolade, whatever.
The Rolade Relief Award.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called anymore. And I'm sure that was given out this week, and I didn't see who won it.
I didn't see anything about that.
Yeah, they did have the Reliever of the Year award, but that has come up in past with Rivera. Trevor Hoffman was brought up in that discussion when he was pitching. I mean, Felix Hernandez and DeGrom changed the way people look at the Cy Young. Felix Hernandez, he might have been the first pitcher, if my recollection serves me right. It might be one way back when that won it with a losing record. He won the Cy Young with a losing record with the Seattle Mariners. But ERA was outstanding. He had the best ERA, he had the most strikeouts, but his team can't score runs.
They couldn't score. They still can't.
Right. So DeGrom with the Mets would score 20 runs with their 5th pitcher on the mound, and DeGrom pitches, and if you can get negative runs, they would with DeGrom pitching. DeGrom would throw a one-hitter and hit a double to knock in the only run in the game and win 1-0. I mean, that he had to do everything.
Yeah, because he's an outstanding hitter.
Yeah, he could DH. Him, Syndergaard, those guys could be. If Ohtani was 15 years ago, I think DeGrom would be doing the same thing. Because DeGrom played shortstop in college. I think let me see if I get the story right. So I can't remember who the pitcher was that the scout went to go watch on the other team. DeGrom was playing shortstop and hit a home run and had 2 more hits and then pitched the next night. And that's when he got on the radar of scouts, was that game, that weekend. So, I mean, he's an outstanding athlete. I mean, he's like Glavine and those guys from the Braves pitching. They had, guys that played hockey and everything else in their pitching staff.
Well, John Smoltz got to last place in the PGA golf school to try to get on the tour.
Right. I mean, well, those guys are competitive out there. They would talk about it all the time. Yeah. So, I mean, when it comes to the free agency, it's Ohtani by far is the biggest name. But after Ohtani, there is a huge drop-off. I don't even know if any, all-stars are even out there. But there is depth if you're looking for depth out there. And I've really been watching what teams are offering, are tendering mounts or not, and who's just letting them walk. And like other teams, we can't offer you 20. Like I think the tender amount was 24 million or something.
Yes, 24 million.
So why would the Mets tender some of those guys? They're not 24 million players. So, you know, you're not going to offer Vogelbach 24 million a year. Good grief. Or Peterson, the pitcher. Some of those guys, you know, they're maybe $1 million if they're lucky. I mean, so
Yeah, you can sign him to a lower contract.
yeah, you can sign or still negotiate with them, but the only reason you tender it, offer them, is so you get, if they don't sign with you,
You get draft pick.
you get a draft pick. But you have to be smart. I mean, you know, Rhys Hoskins would have been tendered, but he's not a $24 million guy. He's just not. So he would have took it. He would have said, "Thank you very much. I'll take it." But you know, you have to remember that when you look at, you know, your guy on your team that doesn't get offered or not, it's very the major league off season is very murky. It's a lot of learning to do. You almost need a PhD in how to read contracts and all this stuff to actually understand how the off season works. You have 40-man rosters. You have the draft that'll come up right at the beginning of the season when they draft the 50-man. What is it? I forget what it's called. The other draft where you can draft minor leaguers that are not on the 40-man roster, but if you draft them, you have to put them on your major league roster. I forget what it's called. I'm sure my buddies will tell me down below what it's called. You got all this stuff that just keeps on going and going. It seems like a date comes up every other day about that, which reminds me, a friend of mine did send me a schedule of off-season. Let me see if I can't pull it up real quick. Off-season schedule. Because it's just, when he showed it to me, I was like, oh my goodness. I don't have it here, but there's stuff coming up all the way through the first of the year, and before you know it, pitchers and catchers. So we're just getting.
I think it's February 24th or 14th or something like that. Pitchers and catchers.
Yeah, there's been some movement already with some trades, minor league players, even a couple of major league players, 4 minor league players. So that's always interesting. I just, you know, we're just getting started in the season between seasons. And it's going to be interesting to see where these free agents go, what trades. We know Trout might get traded. Looks like Soto's on a trading block. Have you heard any other big names?
No, Soto was, rumored to be a hot commodity for the Yankees, and it still is. But the owner in San Diego said not so fast. We're not saying we want to really get rid of him. So
right,
that remains to be seen. You don't know. These guys blow so much smoke. You don't know.
Right.
In all the sports, they always say one thing and mean something else because they're trying to hedge their bet.
Yeah, because I think what I heard was like Soto and Kwan to New York for several players, and I was just like, who they're going to send? I mean, I was sitting there. I go, they could send certain players, but I don't know if they want to get rid of them. I mean, you got the Yankees for once have some homegrown talent, which they haven't had since Pettit, Posada, and Jeter. You know, it's been a long time since we've seen homegrown talent come up in their organization. So, I don't know why they would want to trade him. But, it's going to be interesting. We're just getting started and trying to think, we're going to listen and watch what's going on and keep bringing up things. Anything you want to end today? We're going to not be as long today, but I do want to go ahead.
It's too early for a lot of this stuff to happen. And then if you think about it, there's not going to be a whole lot of big names out there. Mm-hmm. It's just not. After Ohtani, unless Trout's traded or something like that, it remains to be seen. Or Soto, it's just not. There's not that many big names. However, a team can make themselves a lot better by not going after the big names.
Right.
If you have a team, the first thing I would try to do is make my bullpen better.
Yep.
It's the most important part of a team.
Yeah.
If I can make my bullpen better, that's the first thing I would do, because you have to have a bullpen the way baseball is now. Because starting pitchers, if they go 6 innings, they've thrown a lot.
Right. Well, because it's not. I'm going to I stopped myself. The 6-inning thing, they're still throwing 100 pitches, 100 over 100.
Yeah, because they don't throw strikes.
Right. But you got to remember, they don't pitch to contact anymore. They don't. And so their pitch counts go up fast, and they also give 100% on every pitch.
Because they know they're going to be going out.
Right. It's not like it used to be where pitchers could take a batter off. You get past the 5th batter, you can relax a little bit. And a lot of those you look at some of those lineups from yesteryear, and you start understanding how pitchers lasted. And you start looking at, there was some 300 hitters, but there were still a lot of 200 hitters.
No, it's like this year with San Diego.
Right.
Once you got past the 5th batter, you were on easy street.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, because they didn't hit.
Yeah, because I've been, I talked about it last week with Remember Wins. So I'll start. Okay, you want to start stating facts. It's everybody. We can state the few players. When you start talking about the yesteryears, the Mickey Mantles, Roger Maris. Actually, Roger Maris, there's a reason why he's not in the Hall of Fame, right? He only had a few great years. The other ones were not as great.
He was with Kansas City to start with, and I mean, right. It might as well have been in purgatory,
right?
And so when he got from Kansas City to New York, and then he set the record in New York, and then he left New York. People forget he won a World Series in St. Louis,
right,
with the Cardinals, and he had 1 or 2 real good years with the Cardinals, and then that was the end of it because he had a lot of emotional baggage.
Right. And I mean, but I'm just, so you have players, you can name some great players, but there was a lot of, comparatively to players now, especially today, they would not be playing baseball in today's game. They just couldn't make the teams. And I think we want to remember the Willie Mazes and not the Steve Mazes. And that's fine. We want to remember. I remember the good times and not the bad times. It's just but it's a fact.
Well, it was just the way the game was played back then. When you were a starting pitcher, you were expected to pitch well into the game, and if you couldn't, they try to find somebody else. That's just the way the game was played.
But also, they could, because they could pitch to contact and have. They still 120 pitches was pretty much, if you threw 140, that was an extreme.
Yeah,
and they did.
I saw Spahn throw 140 a couple of times, but
right.
Mostly because he was here again. Spahn was more of a strikeout pitcher than a contact pitcher, so he threw more pitches.
Right, and I'm not trying to take anything away from those greats of the greats. I'm not, but when you start looking at the record books, I think we want to remember some of the great moments and not so much of, the 4th pitcher in their rotation. the day he came out. And that game was probably, he might have pitched the complete game, but it was a 9-8 game.
Yeah, it was 7-6, 9-5.
Right.
You know, that's just the way it was.
They don't, you know, they don't play those types of games. They do, but not as often now. So, but I just want this week is Thanksgiving week. I hope everybody stays safe out there.
Yeah, have a happy Thanksgiving, folks.
Yep, and I'll be on the road as well. So going up to see the family. So I'll be with Dad this weekend. But we still should have a show next, I would imagine next Monday as well.
Well, next Sunday, we do this on Sunday afternoon.
Right.
Because it's more convenient for you, and you might be working.
Well, by this time I'll be off. If not, we'll just do it a little bit later in the day.
Okay.
But
Right.
If I am working, hopefully I will be off by this time. But you know, I just want everybody, you know, remember what you're thankful for, and just have a really fun weekend and enjoy the football. How about that? Enjoy some football next weekend, or whatever sport is playing, or just your family.
Yeah.
And until then, have a good one, and we'll see ya.